Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 7 of Sensation and Perception. Now, I got your outlines graded, and I started on the labs. I have not completed grading the labs. Those will be finished this week. Now, after going over the labs, I have decided to simplify them, and so I will be posting the updated lab requirements for the lab reports. The lab data collections are not being changed at all, but the lab reports, I'm going to try and simplify a little bit. First, I'm not going to require you guys to report the results of the analysis. Like, I'm not going to ask you to report the t-test or any of that. I am going to ask you to watch the results video that I post, in which I tell you what the results are. And you'll be, one of the requirements is that the first thing you state in the conclusions will be what were the results of the lab. The second change is that, well, I guess all of the changes really have to do with the results of discussion. So in the results, no longer do you have to worry about stating what the results are. All you need is that table and that graph. So compared to the first lab, what you did in the first lab will be unchanged for the second, third, and fourth labs. All you need is the table and the graph. Okay, so from your perspective, nothing about the results have changed, the results section. All right, but what will change in a pretty major way is that in the conclusions, now you don't have to identify two concepts and explain how they're relevant. Now you just need to tell me what the results of the lab were. So watch that video that I post and you'll know what the results of the lab were. And then you will need to identify one concept from the book that either affected or contributed to the behavior that we observed in the lab, or some concept that what we did in the lab could help us explain. All right, so again, now you just need to identify one concept. So first, identify what the results of the lab were, which again, I will state that in that video I post. Okay, where I go over the results. Okay, then you will need to identify one concept from the book, from the unit that we're covering, that's either a concept or process that our lab demonstrates, or that what was demonstrated in our lab is involved in, or one concept that helps us understand what we observed in the lab. Okay, and that's your new goal. So labs 2, 3, and 4 will involve these things. 1, a paragraph, just like you did before, that explains the procedure. All right, so what is that? That tells me what tasks you were required to do and in what order. All right, and you want to write that clearly and in a technically accurate way. So we don't necessarily need it to be autobiographical. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I did this, then I did this, then I did this. Although that will work. It's not ideal, but it'll work. All right. Ideally, you would say participants first did this, then participants did this, then participants did this. All right, that's what you would do ideally. Okay. And you would give, like, they they provided their responses on a scale if a scale was used, or they provided their responses by choosing one option over the other, and you would describe what those options are. All right, so you want to give some methodological detail. It doesn't have to, again, the method section doesn't have to be this long, extensive book. It just needs to describe what you did and the order in which you did it. Then you have the results section, right? That will be just like what you did. So you'll have to have an APA formatted table and an APA formatted graph, okay? And the results that I'll explain in the video where I explain the results, that will give you some clue as to what to put in a table and what to put in a graph. Namely, if I mention it explicitly in the video, like if I refer to a specific piece of data, that might be something that you would consider putting into a table or a graph. Okay, and then you have the discussion. Okay, and the discussion will involve A, you summarizing very briefly, 2, 3 sentences max, what the results of the lab were, which again, I will say what the results of the lab are in that video where I go over the results of the lab. And then the second thing you want to do in the discussion section is discuss one concept that's related to the lab. All right, so what's a concept? How is it related to the lab? So does the lab demonstrate the concept, or does the concept help us understand the lab? All right, either of those two is perfectly viable. Okay, so those are the changes to the lab. Like I said, I'll get those graded this week. Okay, so then the only thing left for me to announce today is the what you have to do this week. So this week we need to do our first outline of Unit 2, okay, and we want to do our study group for Chapter 6. All right, so this chapter is the chapter over visual attention. Okay, and there's a lot of cool, I mean, in fact, a lot of all of my perceptual research, has been about this aspect of perception. So all of my individual research that is sensory and perceptual has been about attention. So if you have any, in-depth questions, send them my way. And this is true of all of the chapters, but certainly this chapter. I get more excited about this chapter probably than others. All right. That is it for this week. All right, guys. As always, if you have any questions, send them my way. If not, have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.